This is Sadik Marom, and I'm going to discuss two topics: the art and morals, actual and possible misapprehensions. First, I'm going to discuss what's this context all about as it explains arts and morals. Here, we're going to talk about morality. So, what is morality? It is the principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior. But here in our context, we're going to talk about morality that changes its values as the world changes. One that is free of bigotry, absolutes, and arbitrariness. This morality will explain the art's place and value in human affairs in a way that no other morality has explained. So the problem of morality then, the problem of how we are to obtain the greatest possible value from life, becomes a problem of organization, both in the individual life and in the adjustment of individual lives to one another, and is delivered from all non-psychological ideas, from absolute goods and immediate convictions, which incidentally help greatly to give a necessary stiffness and fixity to obsolete codes. It concerns the choice between a crowded hour and an age without a name, and the place of the time factor in valuation. Then, the question of morality, how to get the most out of life, becomes a question of how to organize your own life and how to make your life work with other people's lives. And it's freed from all non-psychological ideas, such as absolute goods and immediate convictions, which help to make old codes stiff and hard. It talks about how to choose between a crowded hour and an age without a name, and how time is important when valuing things. So for people who think that the most valuable experiences are also the most likely to lead to more valuable experiences, there is no problem. If people choose between long or happy life, they will say that they are very happy with a life that is both. In other words, the most valuable states of mind are those in which there is a little conflict, restriction, starvation, or cutting back on activities as possible. States of mind in general are valuable in degree which they tend to reduce waste and frustration. We need to be careful when we think about this statement because we need to remember how many different kinds of things people do. For example, we don't want to be too impressed with people who are very good at their jobs but don't have a lot of emotions. Psychoanalysts have made it very hard for us to forget about the effects of suppressing our feelings, though it is clear that no single systematization that can claim to be the most important one in the world. Men are naturally different, and in any society, there will always be a need for specialization. So far, it looks like there are a lot of good ways to organize things, because what works for one person may not work as well for another. None of these jobs are likely to have the same structure all the way through. The point here is that with different circumstances, different values are bound to come up. It is possible that many things could happen, and so often they do, that make it impossible to live a good life. With a naturalistic morality, the reasons to change them and the best way to do so become clear. But even with our current resources and ability to manipulate nature, everyone agrees that intelligence and goodwill could make sure that no one was left out of all the things that everyone else had. A step that has been long overdue in this project is to clear away moral questions and superstitious interpolations from the project. But until it has gone a long way, It is thought that being busy with things like art or criticism is like being a passenger on a short-handed ship. This is likely to be true for some people who are so busy. Then again, it is not true that criticizing someone is a high-priced thing to do. The back of society can be freed until the front has gone further. There is still not enough goodwill and intelligence to go around. People say critics care as much about the health of their minds as they do about the health of their bodies. To set up as a critic is to set up as a judge of what is right and wrong. In the future, we'll find out what else we need to do. If you think about it, the arts are always without the arts' permission. A look at what's out there. Mateo Arnold, when he said that poetry is a criticism of life, was saying something obvious that is constantly overlooked. The artist is concerned with the record and perpetuation of the experiences which seem to hold to him most worth having. He is the point at which the mind grows. His experience, at least the ones that add value to his work, show how impulses that are still mixed up, intertwined, and conflicting in most people's minds can be brought together in his work. His job is to make sense of things that are not making sense to most people. In part, this is because he is more daring than other people. It is also because he is more flexible, which means that his failures to bring order out of chaos are more noticeable. But when he does well, the value of what he has done is always found in a better organization that allows more responses and activities to happen. There is no way for us to understand what value is or which experiences are most valuable. If we think about things like virtues and vices, you do invert the covenants of our trust, said Comus, that's disreputable advocate of utilitarianism, to the lady, that enemy of nature. Instead of realizing the value comes from the minute specifics of how we respond and how we act. We have tried to find it by following the abstract rules and general rules of conduct. The artist is very good at the little things. As an artist, he does not pay much attention to generalization that he thinks are so simple to tell what is valuable from what is not. For this reason, the moralist has always been suspicious of him or not pay attention to him. As a result, the moralist has been disqualified from being a moralist because he has not paid enough attention to art. So the basis of morality, as Shelley insisted, is laid not by preachers but by poets. Bad taste and crude responses are not mere flaws in the otherwise admirable person. They are in fact the root of all the bad things that happen. It's not possible to have a good life in your basic responses are all mixed up and jumbled. Next, we're going to discuss the actual and possible misapprehensions. Every true thought maybe has its crude counterparts, which may be caused by misinterpreted view of the real world, or by a terrible way to see it. Often, these clumsy or wrong offshoots are to blame for how hard it is for a genuine perspective to be accepted, like shadows, reflections, or echoes. They make it hard to understand what is going on. A lot of people have made references to Tolstoy, and nothing in recent history of art have been as interesting as the atrocity and committed by that great artist on all of the arts. To this, parts of what is art. The value of art contents is judged, according to Tolstoy, by the religious consciousness of the age. All art which does not directly urge the union of men or whose appeal is suspected to be limited to cultured and aristocratic circles, is condemned. However, Shelley's main point is that there are very few poets who make a big difference on their own. It would still be true even if all the poets whose names we know had no effect on human affairs. Poetry helps people think bigger and feel more. Dryden, modest and penetrating in his fashion, was satisfied it is cause delight, for delight is the chief, if not the only end of the poetry. Instruction can be admitted, but in the second place, for poetry only instructs as it delights. It would have been better if Shelley's Cenci, a tragedy, a verse drama, had never been shown. If the goal of the theater is to make people laugh, then the Cenci have failed. To this, the theater is worth its value and the supreme position it has held in history and still holds. What will happen in the future can only guess. Tragedy is to greet an exercise of the spirit, to be classed among amusements or even delights, or to be regarded as a vehicle for the inculcation of such crude valuations as may be codified in a moral. As for tragedy, we have to put it off for a little while longer. We did not want to give the impression that arts are just about being happy, solutions, and clever ways to combine different gratifications, like a box where sweets are piled together. It's not true. A crude psychology, as well as we will see, would think that when an impulse is satisfied, it is a good thing to be happy about. There is no hedonic theory of value that fits even a small part of the field, because it takes what is only a side effect of phase of satisfaction as the source of the whole. But pleasure has a place in the whole discussion of values, and it is very important place. We will see this later on. But it should not be allowed to take over the land that it does not have the right to. And that's the end of my discussion, and thank you.